fight for freedom wherever there's trouble. G.I. Joe is there.
Good morning. It is Saturday, June 4th, I think. I'm guessing.
June 4th.
June 4th. Awesome. God, I know where and when I'm at. That's awesome. So welcome to the G.I. Joe 3D Printing Podcast. I am Mark. With me is Mr. Artwan Poor, who co-founded the G.I. Joe 3D Printing Facebook group with me. Good morning, Juan.
Good morning.
And Mr. Michael Kleppinger, who I just now realized what his T-shirt was. That's awesome. That is awesome.
Thanks. It's strange. I remember liking this group when I was a kid, but I just do not remember going to this concert.
Oh, man. I still sing that song sometimes when I'm driving.
Oh, I love it. Everything about that is great. I tell you, I'm not a huge fan of the Super 7 figures, but if they do a cold Slither set, I'm in it.
You're in?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to get the whole band.
There has been a couple of customs I've seen over the years.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Man, I think that I've been trying to think of what to do, because I'm got to start customizing some figures. I just haven't done it. I think that might be the way to go to get
nice.
those dipped in.
Excellent.
Yeah, outstanding. All right, guys. So today we're going to be talking about 3D scanning. Oh, and here is our guest, Tom.
There he is.
Good morning.
Hey
Morning.
guys, can you hear me?
Yep, we hear you.
Are you?
Yeah, my attempts of logging in with two different devices failed, so I'll just stay with the PC.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I don't know. I don't know what the issue would be with that.
I'm sure it's on my end.
Okay. So we just started. Did a quick little introduction. So Mr. Dominic Viper 6, if you want to do a quick introduction for yourself.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me again. This is a lot of fun. Yeah, my name's Dominic. Like I said in the last time we met, I've been collecting Joes just since COVID started, so just over a couple of years. I'm an architect by trade, so I have a long background in design and 3D design and that sort of thing. So taking those skills and then transporting them over to the 3D collecting side was pretty natural. And during COVID, got really bored, so started doing that. Then I kind of got hooked, and people started asking me to do some customs for them. So that kind of snowballed into what I'm doing today as a hobby, and just building mostly scaled up figures and some custom vehicles and things like that. So I know today's topic's on 3D scanning. As far as 3D scanning goes, I've been 3D scanning in the professional field for probably close to 20 years, but very different technology than what we're using for the figures and toy scanning, the desktop scanning. A lot of LiDAR scanning on sites, in subway tunnels and sides of buildings and things like that. And it's nice to see that the technology's got to a point where it's become affordable for people to scan at home and scan smaller objects and be able to play around with things of that nature. So I think it's taking, especially as a hobby, it's taking it just to a next level. So it's great to be here, and hopefully I'll be able to share some tips and tricks. I'm in my basement collection room, so I don't have the scanner set up here. My scanner is actually set up upstairs, but I did take some screenshots, and I can use those to help illustrate my points later on.
Yeah, I definitely want to be able to dive in and ask some pretty specific questions about what the capabilities are, what the expectations should be.
Sure.
I think there's a lot of people that kind of are now getting into 3D printing and don't understand the difference between something's a scan, something's something someone made in Fusion or Tinkercad or whatever.
Right.
There's a lot of folks out there that just have an expectation that getting the thing you want to print is easy somehow, especially if you have a scanner, right? And it's not the case. So I definitely want to kind of get into that a little bit. So Juan has some decent scanning experience. I used my phone once, and that's about the extent of my experience. Mike, do you have any 3D scanning experience?
Nope, no scanning experience. I'd actually looked at it early on and then decided not to dive into it.
Yeah, it seems like it's
Not to.
like now teach yourself another skill if you want to get into it.
Yeah.
It is. It's definitely another skill. It's not, we all just kind of hope for, a press a button and kind of go, type of thing. But even if it were like close to being that easy, there's still a lot of post work and stuff like that you're going to have to do to get the product that you want. So, that I think we do have to kind of go over that. And Dominic's the perfect person. He's been doing some excellent scanning. I've been trying to be on his heels about it, but I think Dominic is probably one of our experts at this particular thing, because it's not. It's always doable, but it just takes some tips. It takes some tricks.
Okay. Now, Dominic, you had mentioned LiDAR scanning, and I know that's something that's available on, I want to say the iPhone 12, whatever the newest one is. It's got a LiDAR capability. So for anyone who doesn't know, LiDAR is like a laser radar,
Right.
Which I think implies Doppler. I'm not an expert, so I'm not sure how that works. But I don't think you can do that with a laser. I'm not sure.
No, so there are different scanning technologies, right? So LiDAR is one of the earlier and more professional levels, and basically uses laser light to, so the device will shoot out a laser, it bounces off an object, shoots back, and the sensor captures that data.
Mm-hmm.
The great thing about LiDAR is that technically it's not dependent on your environment lighting. So you can go into a pitch black subway tunnel and scan it in full color. So it's really great for that. The LiDAR scanner, the LiDAR technology that comes on a cell phone is similar. It doesn't use a laser, it just uses a special light here with the sensor. And it basically does the same thing. So it shoots out the light, it bounces back, catches that light, and uses that data. The difference between the phone and the professional equipment is the phone is pretty basic. Like I was really excited to get the 12 Pro when it came out, because I thought, oh, great, I can start doing some LiDAR scanning. It's okay if you're scanning your room. It's not that usable. Like for consumers just to play around with and say, oh, look, I could show you a 3D video of my room, that it's fine. For what we're talking about, scanning objects and things, it just doesn't do enough faces or triangles or data points to be a useful model. If you play around with it on your phone and you turn off the texture, you'll see giant triangles. It's not a very detailed model. You can't really do much with it.
Yeah.
Desktop scanning is different. It uses light, and it'll go through the RGB scale and it'll use HDR and that sort of technology, and it just uses the contrasts in light and depth to create a 3D model that way, rather than it's not doing the same bounce back per point. It's more of a general lighting area.
So just for reference, so I had an app on my phone. It's Belarus. It's called Face App, and I got it when I got the phone, and it works. Let me pull up. So I'd done a bunch of pretty awful scans of myself. Let's see if I can pull it up.
Yeah,
but they're not bad. Like it's doable.
But can you turn off the texture?
I can't. I can download the STL and you can see it, and because it scans, I think, actual size. By the time I shrink it down to 1/12 scale or something, it's really not bad, and it does need touch-ups, but it's a full head. Like the eye, like I would really need to kind of touch up around the eyes to make kind of that detail pop out.
Right.
But it worked, and then the app went away. Like they took the servers down, and I assumed there'd be some other app that would kind of take its place, and it just doesn't exist.
Yeah, I have a couple here on my phone. none of them are great. There's one that's just called, it's from Matterport, called Capture. That's more for rooms. Glow 3D,
Mhm.
In 3D, 3D scanning app, Polycam. I have Face app. I think it still works. I haven't opened it in a while.
You can open it, you
Yeah,
can
but
scan with it,
it's a
but you
paid
can't
service now, I believe.
download. You can't get the STLs anymore. It used to be you would pay like 99 cents and you could
Yeah.
download the STL or the OBJ or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 6 apps on here now. None of them work for the stuff that I want to do.
Exactly. Well, that's my point. Like, they're fine, I think, for people to play around with their phones and, you know, swap faces on their friends' faces and that sort of thing. But if you're going to use that model for 3D printing, I think you need something a little better. And like, it would be fine for animation. And once we look in the scanning application, I'll talk more about that. But there's a big difference between scanning something for animation and scanning something for modeling with a print in mind.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very similar to like if you're designing in Maya or Blender, where you're working with wireframes and skins and not necessarily solids like you would be in Tinkercad or Fusion. Same
Right.
kind of thing, I imagine. There's holes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Have we got anything coming up in chat? Good morning, everybody.
A lot of mornings.
Yeah. Okay. So, if you guys want to, we can kind of dive right in, Dominic. If you want to kind of steer the boat for a few minutes, and we'll see where it goes.
Sure. Yeah, and people could, I guess, just jump in with questions. That'd be fine. One, you have. Would you be able to share your screen with your Einscan software? If you need to?
Possibly.
Okay, I have some screenshots. I'll start with that, and then, you know, if it doesn't work well, we can try. So I'm going to try sharing my screen here. Yeah, entire screen's fine. I don't have anything. It says unable. Okay, let's do window mode then. Let's try that. Finder. It's not letting me share my screen.
Yeah. Let me see if there's a. Does it say you don't have permission or something?
Yeah. And I'm gonna grab. Sorry. Try that again. Sorry, guys. No, it doesn't give me permission.
That is odd.
Screen recording for the browser. Damn it. Okay, that's why I wanted to use this separate devices. But
I apologize, guys. We don't.
Yeah, sorry, guys. My permissions are all turned on. I don't know what else to do here. Try this.
So under share screen for me, it's only. There's nothing about guests or permissions or anything. It's just all about me sharing
says I want
my
to share my
screen.
entire screen or my window. So either one I pick, it just says unable to share screen, permissions not allowed.
And there's only one place where there's permissions for guests, and it's everything's on.
I don't know what else to do here. Damn it. Sorry. Let's try something in my settings maybe.
Oh, so on my side, I hit share screen, and there was a Windows pop-up menu that popped up that defaulted to block. That might be what's going on here. Block, always block. Screen 1, screen 2. Yeah, I don't. That's weird on mine. I would not be able to either because it's not allowing me to allow Studio Restream to see your screen.
Okay. Give me 1 second.
Interesting.
Oh, there we go.
We're going to troubleshoot that for just a moment. And while we're doing that, I saw a couple posts this morning on the GI Joe.
Okay, I'm gonna have to
3D
rejoin.
printing
Okay.
group.
Okay.
Just give me a sec.
So Mr. Brooks Cobb posted this morning this picture. So this is the Dragonfly 2 that Steve Toys created. This was again, Brooks Cobb printed and posted this, and it's gorgeous. It's a monster. Look at this thing.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
I think I get that. Sorry.
All right, we'll come back to that. All right.
That's beautiful, by the way.
So
It's gorgeous.
yeah, there's a lot going on with your screen. So I'm going to turn that on,
Let me just clean it up a bit.
and then I'm going to turn everyone else off, just to make.
Just let me screen share.
There we go. Okay.
There we go.
Okay, so I think you see Falcon on the screen.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know if you guys see me as well or just the screen.
We can see you small.
I can see you.
Okay, so I have Falcon in my hand here. Okay, so in this example, I'm going to be showing a scan of a full figure. I never scan full figures because you'll see reasons why, like things don't scan properly on the inside, and I scan things in individual parts. But just as a test model here. So what we do is when scanning, like this looks pretty good on the screen now, right? It has the full texture and everything. The first thing about scanning is you have to realize, again, like I said before, there's a big difference between scanning for animation and scanning for modeling. So if we look for modeling, we can look at, let's see here, just open up something. Okay, so when you open up Einscan, for example, you have the option to scan in texture or scan in just basically without texture. I always scan with texture regardless, just because I like seeing it. But the difference is that instead of looking at a model like you did before, this would be the end result that you want to get. Okay, for modeling purposes. If you're doing animation, you're looking for, sorry, let me get back to the other slide. You're looking for this. This model would be a lot lighter, have many fewer faces, and you can slice it up for animation purposes, move it around, and do all sorts of things with it. And the important part here is getting that texture color right. Okay, when you're using the models for 3D printing, you don't need any of this texture at all. What you need is the details. So you can see that there's some problems with this model right away in terms of 3D printing. You see his feet are cut off at the bottom. That's because his boots are black. Okay, so with desktop scanning, because it uses light and reflected light, it does a great job with light colors. But as soon as you get to the darker colors and to black or to reflective materials, it does a very poor job. The scanner doesn't pick it up. There are some settings to help with that, which we'll go through in a minute, but the scanner does much better with lighter colors towards white. Okay, for that reason, when you scan the figure as is, this is the quality of scan you get, which is not, let me see if I can zoom in here, just not great. I don't know how well you guys can see that, but you can see around his chest, the detail is very smeared. It's very, very low level detail. That's the same model. So with the textures on, it looks awesome. It looks like all the details there. But without the textures on, you see the true quality of the model, right? Mm-hmm. Our end target is to have something that looks like this. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is a good scan. It has flaws because I'm scanning it as one piece. So the armpits between the crotch and the legs, it's going to start webbing, like it's going to start connecting the model together where it shouldn't. but that's because it's a single file, that like a single model that we're scanning all at once. The scanners also have trouble with things like, if you imagine the Eiffel Tower, to get all that internal structure and all those openings, these types of desktop scanners have trouble with that. Okay, now, so I'm using an Einscan from Shining 3D. I originally had the Einscan SP, which is the higher model. I've recently downgraded. I sold and traded with a friend of mine for the SE, the lower end model for it. The difference between the two, they look almost exactly the same. One is silver, one is black, but like physically they look the same. They work exactly the same way. Some of the specs are different. So on the higher end model, the resolution is 0.05 millimeters. On the lower end model, it's 0.1 millimeters. Okay, so you think, yes, it has double the resolution. The key point about that, though, is for this scale, you're not going to see that much of a difference, because once you get into scanning small pieces like the shoulders, anything smaller than 3 centimeters by 3 centimeters by 3 centimeters, that is the scanner for both scanners. The scanner spec, that's their minimum volume for scanning, recommended volume. So anything that's smaller than basically 1 inch cubed, the scanners are not ideal for, they say. But with some tricks and things, that you can get a really good scan with them. So at this scale, you don't see a big difference between the more expensive unit versus the lower priced unit. So I figured for about a quarter of the price, I can still get about functionally the same kind of scans. So it wasn't worth it to me to keep the more expensive scanner.
And the Einscan S or Einscan SP is about, and when you're talking price difference, it's about $600 more. And for a lot of people, that's a big chunk.
Yeah, and up here it's actually it's just over $1,000 more for us. So it didn't make sense to me. And again, once you're at this scale, because I've had them both now, functionally with a little bit of blender work and stuff, you don't see the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so going back to scanner, just some tips. Like, so again, we're using the Shining 3D software. Things like there are Revo scanners, a bunch of scanners that you can see on Kickstarter that are more cost effective. It's the most important things to look at are the minimum size scan volume. Like I said, this one's about 1 inch cubed, and then the scanner resolution. So what we're looking at here is that 0.1 millimeter scan resolution. A lot of those ones you see online, they'll be like at 0.5 or bigger. The Revo's pretty good. I think they have a new one that is 0.1. The difference there is what I like about the Shining 3D ones is that they come built with a turntable built on them already. So it's already configured at the optimal distance. You don't have to worry about that. What I do though is that every time I start a new session of scanning, not between scans, but every new session, I always go through a calibration. I do find that after a few scans, and remember there are mechanical parts, like the turntable is moving, I do find that over time it does tend to start to diverge, and you start to see some like scans that come off a little offset. So I always like to do a calibration to start, and it's really easy. It only takes a couple minutes. You follow the steps. There's nothing complicated about it. What we're looking at here is once you get into the software, it'll ask you, do you want to start a new project? Do you want to do a texture scan? My answer, yes, yes, and yes. And then we start here. Starting on the left-hand side, you'll see a little window. That's what the scanner is seeing. Okay, and if you'll notice, my Falcon is white. It doesn't look like the figure. Like I said before, the scanners do a lot better with white than darker objects. So no matter what I scan, and this is just a tip, like, pro tip, I guess. When I first started scanning, what I would do is I would can you guys see my cursor move around?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I would up the brightness. So when you up the brightness, if you see this screen here, all this red, that starts to show up. So you see this brightness is all the way up, okay? The target spot that you should be looking at is when you're scanning, you don't want to see, if you see the brightness here, it's about, I don't know, 30% of the way. So you want to go one tick more, and as soon as you start seeing red, just pull it back one step down, okay? What the red is, it's overcompensating contrast, okay? So what will happen is you'll get a lot of artifacts in your scans and a lot of noise, and the scan model itself will be very rough, like very jaggedy, with sharp dimples in it all over the place. It looks horrible, okay? When I first started scanning, and I was scanning, one of the first things I started scanning was the bats, which is all black, or mostly black. I was just
perfect for learning then, yeah.
yeah. It wasn't planned that way. It was just the first figure I decided to do. I didn't realize anything about that. So like I thought, okay, I'll just up the brightness, and I was just cranking it until I got all the details. But it looked horrible, and it took like hours and hours and hours of cleaning and Blender, and it was not good. Like it's the worst way to do things. But that function is there. I would take this function to be more of a tweaking rather than, oh, let me get the details I can't see. So what I would suggest is if you see something like this, where the feet are cut off, bottom, I would not use the brightness to fix that. What I would do is spray everything white. Okay, so if I can just jump back, how do I stop screen share for a second? Okay, can you all see me now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so the best stuff to use for spraying is this made by ASUB here. It's a scanner spray. Okay, and if you look through the stats, it gives you all the stats, how it's like ideal for 3D scanning, and it's like scientifically concocted and tweaked for your scanner, and it's amazing, and it works great, I have to say. It doesn't damage the object. It washes off. The stuff washes off. There are two types. There's one that just goes invisible after a while. I don't use that one because it doesn't give you a lot of time. Use the one that stays white until you wash it off, but it just comes off with water. You don't even need soap. Just warm water, and it takes it off. This
Like
stuff's
powder?
really
Is it like a powder?
I'm sorry?
Does it come out like a powder?
Yeah, it's kind of
bit, yeah.
powdery. Like I'll explain in a second the texture, but this stuff is very expensive. But if you don't care, by all means, get this. It works the best. But I have a little.
Well, give us like that little can. Are we talking $30 or?
No, I think in Canadian, I think this was like, I can't remember if it was like $60.
Yeah,
Ron, do you know how much they are?
Yeah, so in the US, those are running about 60 bucks for that.
Yeah.
Wow.
This a buddy of mine who does dentures gave it to me to play around with.
Right.
I went through this can in like a couple days.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not cool, and then you don't really use it. You're like, oh, you don't want to use it. You want to use it sparingly.
So there are some alternatives, some much cheaper alternatives.
Yeah. So I have a conspiracy theory. I think these guys buy their stuff from Dr. Scholl's here.
Yep.
And that's what I was going to say. Is it the texture of foot spray?
It is not just the texture. It has the same smell. It has the same coverage. I think it's the same stuff.
Well,
yeah, because it's
what
primarily
you can
talc,
say
I
is
imagine.
it's the markup is just like when you do something regularly, like try to throw a party and you rent a banquet hall or something. There's one price, but if you say it's for a wedding, it's another price.
Exactly.
It's the same hall, different prices.
You want to spray your stinky shoes? You use the $3 can here that lasts you like months, or not months, but it depends how much you're scanning. Or you tell them, oh, I'm scanning 3D models of whatever that I'm selling. Oh yeah, then you need the professional version. It's the same. I am convinced it's the same thing.
So you've used the foot spray for a scan?
Oh, yeah.
I only use the foot spray.
I
was using this, and like the first time I used it, I'm like, oh, this feels very familiar. smells, like it smells like something I've smelled before. And then I'm like, that's what this is. It's foot spray.
Okay.
So I got the foot spray. I tried a couple different brands, to be honest. And when you go look at the foot spray market, which I've learned a lot about, is they market some foot sprays that when you spray them on, they don't leave white residue and all this stuff. Don't get that stuff. You want the cheap
You want that
residue.
stuff, yeah.
So
Yeah.
once you spray it on,
there you go.
yeah. So this is a sprayed torso, right? And that's what it looks like. So when you touch it, you can see it. It starts to wipe off. So you have to handle it carefully, not to take it off. And you just like spray paint, just like lightly, and it turns it all white. I spray the inside as well. Okay. So going back to my screen share, I'll just do full screen again. Going back to my screen share.
There's also washable paint, white paint. A Facebook user also said dry shampoo works well. This stuff for this big bottle, this is a pretty big bottle. Let me get it in there. Same thing. It's wet, so you just kind of slap it on and then let it dry, and it dries and looks the exact same as the doctor shows.
I'm wondering if you could even thin it out and put it through an airbrush.
Yeah, you probably could.
You know what though, guys? I have to say, like, the spray is really simple. You don't have to brush it on. It takes 2 seconds. You just spritz it, and it's instant.
Awesome.
I don't know, like, yeah.
Oh, it's the same as the little can. So yeah, it's a quicker, faster application.
Yeah, I guess you could make the argument at the end of the day, what's cheaper, what's more available to you as an individual, where you're located.
Yep.
Yeah, sure.
So on my screen, you'll see the figure sprayed and on the turntable. So that's what it looks like.
Hold on. Cool.
Now, you'll see the background. I have that kind of whatever texture in the background. That's just a dark gray foam pad. I would suggest putting something around the scanner just so it's not picking up other
something dark.
Yeah, something dark, so you're not picking up other things. So by spraying the figure like that, in the settings, you'll see the brightness is turned down. Now, I can scan this with the brightness all the way to 0, and it'll still come out pretty good.
Because you sprayed it.
Because it's sprayed, yes. Now, I up the brightness. What I tend to do is I up the brightness until I see something show up red, like I showed you in that other picture, like it'll start to show a red blotch, and then I go one step back. So right before there is any redness showing. So what you're doing is you're increasing the contrast and the brightness of the scan so that what you're doing is you're increasing the light that it's shooting out, therefore more light is coming back. So it's increasing the level of detail that you're picking up. But keep in mind, again, the more you increase the brightness, the more dimply your scan will come out. Okay? It'll be less brightness, it will come out smoother. Not necessarily better, just smoother. So you might lose some detail. So you always try and find the sweet spot, usually around, 2 or 3 ticks or a little higher. And then, like I said, find it until the model starts turning red and then take one step back. HDR, you don't need to use for our purposes. That's if you're doing animations and you want to pick up its better texturing, mapping. I scan with the turntable on, meaning that you put your object in the center and it takes steps. So you can do 8 to 36 steps, and that just means it does a 360-degree turn divided by 8. So it does 360 degrees in 8 steps or in 36 steps. When I do my test scans, I just use 8. And then I'm crazy. I overscan and like do things as big as I can because I like to scale them down later. So I always scan things usually like around 32 steps, especially if the piece is complicated. I'll do in 32 steps. If it's just like a torso, like I was showing you before, I do 16. I never scan my final stuff in 8, although you totally can. Like if it's a simple shape, you totally can scan in 8 steps. More steps just means more data, which means bigger files that are heavier files. So if you don't have a powerful computer, and that's why I use my computer upstairs, not my laptop, If you don't have a powerful computer, then you need to keep it to a minimum here, right? You can change the alignment mode to turn off turntable, and you just do single views. Okay, what that means is you just set an object on the turntable at a specific angle that you want, and it does one shot. The only time I use that is, for example, if I'm scanning, let's say, the torso I was showing you. Maybe I'll switch back to explain this better. Okay, so if you're scanning the torso, you may scan this, let's say, in 8 steps. So turns, does your 8 steps. But what you'll find is inside, like around the structure in the deep crevices, it might not scan perfectly, and I'll show you what the warnings are for those. So what I will do is I'll do a 360 scan, and then I'll do a second scan and just set it at a certain angle on my turntable and just take single shots just to get that extra detail that the scan angle didn't
So
quite.
the software knows to add that data.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
For the
Now,
most part.
when you're scanning a figure, you can just set the figure on like this, and because he stands on his own, and you can scan him, right? And then you can flip him like this and scan him, and flip him like this and scan him, and do all kinds of angles that you want. And the software will align by feature. There's a button that you'll see on the screen that says align by feature, and it'll find itself and align it the best that it can. There's an optimize button I'll show you in a bit that will adjust. And if things are not perfect, there is a manually aligned option that you can go in and move the scans to fit them in better. Okay, it's tedious and to get it to work properly, and it's frustrating. So if you can get a good scan without having to do that, that's the better way to do it. Now, like I was saying, so we scan this piece on the turntable, it does its thing. Then you set it again for a couple of single shots, and then hopefully the model will align itself. If not, you got to go through that manual process. But what I do to help is I don't scan this on its own. What I do is I just make a base. Go this way. So I make a base. This is just a phone charger with painter's tape on it, and this is just sticky tack.
Yep.
Okay, and then I put these dots on every face, and I do different numbers on every face, like different configurations. Okay, and what that lets me do is I'll take the piece and I'll just stick it on. This one's not going to want to stay. Whatever, I just stick it on. I do my 360 scan like this, right? Then I'll find the angles and do my single scans like this. And this base, because I put the dots and it's something like simple, the software has a much easier time aligning the model at the different angles. Okay, so this is a trick I figured out. And then if you need to manually align something, when you bring up those two different meshes, and they'll look like, one will look like this, and then one will look like this, and you got to like rotate them and line them up properly. By keeping the base, that's why I have the dots, so that you can line up the dots on your mesh easily and it asks you to put points in. So you use those dots as the defining points on how to line up the mesh, and then it lines it up perfectly.
Nice.
Right? This took me a lot of trial and error to realize that that's the best way to do things. Like, I'll also do, if this does require, I should say, one more step of cleaning, because now your model has this in it. You just, in the software, cut the base off and delete it, and then remesh, and it'll fix that. It's going to require a little cleanup in Blender down here where the sticky tack touches, because you're not going to get a really clean edge, but it's easy enough to do. You just kind of smooth and fill a little bit, and it's fine.
Yeah, he's giving you all the tricks right now.
Yeah, you've mentioned Blender a couple times. Have you found that to be the best software for cleaning these up, or is it just kind of like a personal preference thing?
It's a little bit of personal preference in which software I'm using depending on the scan. So if I'm scanning figures, I'll start in Blender because they're organic shapes, or Maya, like if you're or ZBrush or whatever, like if you're one of those guys, that's fine. I put those all in the same category, right? Blender, ZBrush, Maya is basically the same. But if I'm scanning a vehicle, something with whatever harder edges, I'll go bring it into Fusion and clean it in Fusion. There are some decent tools in Fusion, and like if you edit there's a button called Direct Edit on the, like if you click a mesh, you direct edit it, it'll open that mesh up, and you could repair it, you can fill gaps, you can simplify the model. What I always do is I remesh.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So when you scan, what kind of file are you getting? Is it a STL, OBJ?
Okay.
Anyone that you want to pick, basically.
Yeah, I pick from the scan. I pick OBJ only because now they're bigger files, but I pick it only because in case I want to go into 3D Studio Max, the importing is a lot better for the OBJ. It has problems, like it'll import STL files, but it crashes a lot doing it. And you have to wait like 5 minutes to import it, even though it's a smaller file. Like the translation in 3D Studio doesn't work that great. So what my workflow is, I scan and save in OBJ. I bring into whatever software I'm using as an OBJ, and then I save my work in progress as OBJ and whatever Blender files or Fusion, depending what software I'm in. And then my final product that I'm ready to print, I export as an STL.
Right.
I thought you were gonna be. I thought you were gonna say 3MF.
One day, we'll see. We'll see.
Okay.
When not everything works with it yet.
I after you were on last time, I found I started playing with it, and the software we were using for FDM didn't like it. Simplify 3D. So we're actually moving. No, Simplify did like it. We're actually trying to start using Cura more, but the Chidu box, the basic Chidu box, wouldn't take a 3MF, and I ended up paying for the professional version of Chidu box, which does take it, and I can honestly say it's a little better.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just use the regular Chidu box, so it doesn't work for me. So I just stick to STL.
Cool.
For now, anyway. So I'm going to share screen again. I'll just jump back into this.
So when you want, you don't have to. I can control all that. So if you want to switch your screens around, just give me a heads up, and that way you don't have to keep joining and stuff.
Okay, perfect. I'll just go through a couple more of these settings and explain what they are here.
Hey Dom, quick question that came up from the chat. Somebody wanted to verify what scanner and what software are you using?
So I'm using an Einscan. Now I'm using an Einscan SE or the SP. They're like I said, they work the same way. And the software is Shining 3D. It's the company that makes Einscan. So you can see the device here. So that's the company and the scanner right there.
It's not up yet.
Oh, do you not see my screen? Oh, sorry,
No.
guys. I didn't click the right share button. There you go. You see that now?
Yes.
Yep.
There you go.
Here we go.
So scanning, Shining 3D is the company, and then the device, the product is this one here, and then there's an SP version if you want to spend the extra money on that. Going back down to the settings, so we went through these. The rest of the settings I wouldn't touch, like in terms of the speed in which the turntable turns and that sort of thing. Just leave those as default, it's fine. So it's really basically these that you tweak. Okay. When we, back down to here. So once your scan is complete and does its full rotation, it looks like this. So there's my Falcon scan with the texture turned on. And you go to your next setting. So your next point is the post-production, and you'll get, or post-processing, I should say, and you'll get some features here. You don't need to do too much. Like if you get a clean scan like this, it's usable. Like you can bring it right into Blender and then do what you need to do, or whatever software you're using. I do always go through just a couple of quick steps. There's a down here, there's a fill button. If you have any holes in your model for whatever reason, the little paint bucket here, it'll fill those parts of the mesh. There's a sharpen and smooth. I tend to use, if you get a good scan, I'm trying to zoom in here, you can see it's not dimpled at all. I'll just run a quick smooth on it just to get it like, and this is a personal preference thing. Like you could look at it try just a quick smooth, so you just get a little bit better on like these portions of the model. But always be careful not to lose the detail. Then if there's not enough detail, you can sharpen. I never find the sharpening to work all that great. I feel like
it's not the greatest. I usually try to sharpen at like a medium just to see if I see any real difference. There's like a soft, medium, hard sharpen,
right,
something like that. I usually go for a medium just to see if.
Yeah, to me, all it does is it.
Right.
And I mean,
And
sometimes like you might have a piece of the model like that. You might try it like Juan is saying on a medium, and you'll get a bit of a better definition here. But I don't think it's worth adding noise to the rest of the model. So what I tend to do is I keep it, and I'll add that detail by just in sculpting in Blender or wherever. What I do though, again through experience, I used to save these at full size. Like when I did my it's just crazy. So if you look here at the top left, this is the original size of this scan is 64 megs. Okay, so if it's an STL, I see it as OBJ, so it's 86 megs. So an 86 meg scan like this, once you bring it into Blender and you start sculpting and you start adding, it jumps, and I used to hit like 300 plus megs per part, like per figure part. It's really big. You can see how many polygons it has. So what I tend to do is I'll take this and I'll shrink it down. I'll simplify. I'll use the simplify button, which is this triangle, and I'll go about 30 to 50%. Now,
some programs, in order to import, have sort of like a max that you can do it. So you always have to be careful with that, depending on what you're bringing it into.
Right.
Yeah,
So the
like
max,
in Fusion, if you import something like that and you want to bring it down in size, or if you want to mess with it as a mesh, like it's got to be like 10,000 polygons or something, or less or something.
Yeah.
Well, that's the recommended. It can be more, but
I was using those 350 meg files, and it's painful. It's painful. So I learned that use the simplify tool. Just use the slider, check the results, make sure you're not losing the details that you want, and then apply, and you should be good, right? So
does it bring the size of the file down like a corresponding amount? Like if you bring it down to 30%, is it like that's the file size comes down to like 30% of what it was?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's I don't know if it's a linear relationship, but it's pretty close to. So if I go down to 50%, my file will be whatever 43 megs, roughly. So
I find this very, very useful because, again, trying to bring those files into, Fusion or Blender, that, the bigger the file, the longer it takes, or the more, more jammed up your processor might be.
Right. So again, if we remember at one of the first steps, I said, when you start this scanning process, it asks you, do you want to do a textured scan or a non-textured scan? This is what a non-textured scan would look like, right? There's no texture. This little eyeball will turn the textures on or off if you have them. A textured scan, in this case, scanning the same figure, remember sprayed white, looks like this, right? So you can see with the textures on, like you can see how good the details are, right?
Yeah.
But it's the exact same model that we just saw. So this is a little misleading because the texture that's mapped on adds some shadows. It adds the perception of more detail than is actually there. But you can see, like on his nose, the spray kind of rubbed off a little bit because I was touching the figure over here on the hat. Right, you can see how his boots are sprayed. I just have him on a figure stand. But the quality is really good. Like I have to say, I really like the quality of these scans. So once you're done, you just save it as the file format you want. You bring it into whatever editing software you're using, and then you start to clean it up. And by cleaning it, I mean it's a combination. What I do is a combination of sculpting. Like with sculpting tools, I'll go in and really like cut these edges sharper to make them more defined. But on my figures, and well, mostly my figures, I'll go in, I like in Fusion even, I'll model like the knife or the dagger that he has here, and I'll replace this model with like an actual 3D model of one that I'll make. Like
So
I
it's real
model
sharp.
a lot of the little details and add them. I find it, but I mean, that's more advanced. If you keep it just like this, you can clean this model up very easily because it's pretty clean already. And it's not difficult. Like you just go in anywhere you want a stronger edge, a carve tool or whatever, and you just kind of just make it a little more defined. You cut around the edges of the scarf, and you can add a little bit of creasing in it, and it'll look great, especially if you're printing at like 3 3/4 scale or 6-inch scale. Like this model will look really good.
Mhm.
So when you say it's easy, but is it time consuming?
Time consuming, yes.
Time consuming, yes. But if all you're doing is cleaning a model like this, it's not difficult. It just takes time. If you're doing what like Juan and I do, and where you're scanning individual parts for purposes of printing them individually to assemble them physically, there's a lot more work. Like on the inside of those, I'll go back to my screen, on the inside of those torsos, right? You may have to like model a cylinder and cut the screw hole better and that sort of thing. You'll want to go here and because again, like I said before, with the Eiffel Tower, it doesn't get the scanners don't do well with deep penetrations. So the structure inside, like inside the screw hole there, it won't scan it as a whole. It'll scan it as like just surface, just a couple millimeters deep, but then it'll be solid and closed inside. So in your software, you're gonna have to create a cylinder and cut it and cut the hole again. You'll want to clean up some of the joint.
So exactly. So this is a scanned and put together figure that took a lot of post, but what he's basically trying to say, if I can get it centered enough.
I'm trying to get you front and center. There we go.
There you go. So if you want to get a screw in there to close these things, if you want to get the hardware in there, you're going to spend quite a bit of time basically reproducing all of the engineering
Yes.
that holds these together. Okay. So even though you scan it, and that's kind of the point, even though you scan it, when you're scanning, you want to think of it like this. You're getting the look that you want, but you still have to take some time and rebuild the figure inside out is really what he's saying. So if you want things like holes, scanning doesn't do holes all that well.
Right. So I don't know if you guys see my screen.
Yep.
Okay, so this is a 12-inch Storm Shadow, right? So like Juan said, so this was 3D scanned in individual parts, like 20 or so parts. But each part, I use the scan as a reference model. So this is my process now. Again, this is like not beginner. This is more advanced. But you can clean up those parts and print them and sand them and fit them together, and it'll be okay. What I do now, especially because I'm blowing these things up to a bigger scale where you can see a lot more of the detail, I go in and rebuild almost, I would say 90% of the model. So if you look at let me see if I get the light in here. If you look at the accessories on his chest, those are all 3D modeled accessories, like after fact. And these ones, and what I do is, because just again, personal preference, I model all these hard lined parts in Fusion and bring them into Blender, and then the organic ones, the organic more flowy parts, I do in Blender. So I use a combination of the two. We talked more about that in the last time when we were talking about figures. But this whole thing is remodeled, and you can see like I add a lot of like, creasing in the fabrics and stuff that because when you blow up a small figure, they look very detailed, but once you look at them closely, they're not actually that detailed.
The details are very soft.
Yeah, they're very soft.
Yeah.
So when you blow it up, like even like the strapping on the legs, it starts to all kind of blend together, right? So I I remodel these to make them nicely defined, the creasing in the clothing, the whole thing, basically.
Yeah, he goes way above and beyond. He's basically redrawing the figure.
Yeah.
With that, that's why he's the master, basically.
I kind of compare it to comic books, right? You get the guy who does the pencil work, and then you get a guy who does the inking, and then the guy who does the coloring.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, so who drew the final one? Well, it's a combination of the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So when I see comments in the groups where people are like, oh, why is that so expensive? You're just scanning and printing it. Well, no, the scanning process alone takes hours, cleaning it, and then you're basically remodel. Like if you're getting it to this level, you're remodeling it, right? So it's the difference between getting a pencil sketch and a full colored poster, basically.
Right. Wow. Well, right. It's the epitome of no one cares. They see the end product. No one cares. They just they want to buy it or not. So that this explanation really winds up being that if someone is skilled enough to present the product, you have to understand that there took a lot of skills before you see what you see, basically. If it were that easy, I think everybody would be doing it. And so we got to understand that if you come from that perspective, if it was so easy, everyone would do it.
Cool. There was one silly question in the chat. Somebody was asking if you were from New York. and like,
is it my accent?
You've got it, yeah, but I would say you've got more of the Canadian thing going on.
Yeah. Italian Canadians from Toronto have a bit of a New York kind of twang to us. Yeah. We're a bit of a subgroup in town here.
Also, so what you said you kind of got bored during COVID and you started to really do this. Like at what point did you say, oh, I'm just going to do figures? Like, was that what you always planned to do?
The first thing I did was the swamp skier for Zartan. And that was because why did I do that? Or no, sorry. The first thing I started was the bat. And the bat I just did because I thought, oh, it'd be really cool to have a giant bat. And there's this 6-inch. Yeah, that's one of the first guys I did. And that was I picked the worst figure you can pick to start. The bat has 26 individual pieces. They're all very complicated pieces. It's mostly black and silver. Yeah, that was the worst part. But then I did the swamp skier, and one of the other things I did is the BET. I started doing. I just wanted to build things for myself, and then excuse me. And I was posting them, and people were pinging me saying, "Oh, I'd like one of those bats," and it just snowballed from that. And it's just I do things based on requests. So I'm not the type to go and I'm not going to go build like a wave of 12-inch Joes and then say, "Hey, does anybody want them?" I do them based on someone requests or a couple people request. Then I'll do it. Just because it takes so much time, right? A lot of people say, "Oh, well, just build them and then sell them." I'm not a store. This is not my full-time job.
And
right?
It's not your full-time job.
Right.
Yeah. So, I've been pretty lucky. Like the last year, I'm busy enough that I fall behind. Like, I've got a bunch of orders from May that I'm not done, but I'm going through them. Like people ask me for weird things. Like, so like I'm doing a Brazil version of the Frag Viper, Lethal. So this is like one that I'm working on right now.
That looks really good.
Yeah.
Oh,
For the record.
What size is that? Is that going to be a 6-inch or a 12-inch?
No, this is 7.5.
Oh yeah.
7.5.
That's a
two up. Yeah,
Okay.
2 up. I got his he comes with the sound backpack. So I do all the accessories and everything, but I'm still, I don't know if you guys can see in the background, I still haven't touched the bat since last time we talked.
Okay.
touched it, or
That's just been lingering in the background. So I have a lot to do, which is great. I wish I could quit my job and just do this all day.
yeah,
Oops.
it's rough. It's the market for kind of the stuff that we're doing. There's an expectation, like people are accustomed to buying the GI Joe figure, and it's when we were kids they were $2 and change, $3 and change. Now it's classified was $20. Now it's like 23, 24. And then it's like I'm making this and it's awesome. And it's so much work goes into one piece that I'm like, no one's buying what they're truly worth.
Right.
If you thought about all the talent and skill and hours that go into these things, if you charged like a professional price for how much work you put into it, it'd be thousands.
Oh, for sure.
For little things, and no one wants to pay that, and they get shocked and kind of taken aback.
Yeah, I've done the math. I mean, like on a 12-inch, or actually, you know what? For me, the hardest things for me to build are 3 3/4. To be honest, those take the most time for me because I'm not good with miniatures. But I've done the math, like on figures and vehicles that I'm building a BET for someone now. I'm making way less than minimum wage doing these things.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like we're talking like when you actually figure out the real hours, you're talking like $5 an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And truthfully, like Joe Random can't just do what you're doing without months or years of trial and error and practice and learning. So there's, the value of all that skill and talent, it really isn't being, and I'm not trying to talk you out of fucking making stuff. Please keep making stuff. But it's just, man, it's brutal. It's brutal, the markdown on the talent that goes into these things.
Yeah, like I started offering. I did the last thing I offered was like I'm doing 20, a limited run of 20 of my like Once a Mickey figure. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
Mhm.
Yep. My card back is here. I don't know where I put them. And those are 3 3/4 inches. Now I made that figure really for myself because I wanted one, and then another collector saw it and I used it as trade bait to get something I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So I made him one, and then I thought, okay, I'll offer like a run of 20 of them, and I kind of half regret it because like they are so much work.
Well, yeah, the smaller. So here's an instance where, for him, he's doing the big back, and he's like, man, I love it. It's just a lot of time in printing. Well, it's easier to put together.
Yeah,
it is so hard to put the 3 3/4 Joes, and I've even seen. I think Dom's done like a smaller, like a 2.
Oh, I did a 1, a half. No, I have it here. It's
he's done a bat that was
it's 1.5 inches. But it's I printed every single piece individually, so you could assemble it like
Wow.
But
Mike,
I haven't touched it because
Mike, right up your alley.
Here, where is he? He's over here.
So yeah, so the smaller you get, or just doing the regular size Joe, and even to paint it, you've got to be an awesome painter too.
Painting's hard, man.
Yeah. Look at
Wow.
that.
That's amazing.
But I have like there's the backpack. Like I did every piece. But
what did you print those on?
This is resin. There's the claw.
No, I was asking like specifically what's the printer?
Oh, the printer. My resin printer is I can never pronounce it. Wanwao CGR 4K resin printer.
Yeah.
It's more of an industrial kind of resin printer, but like it's comparable to like whatever, like a mono 4K or whatever. It just has more like steel parts to it, so it lasts longer. But here's the leg kind of put together, bends.
Wow.
But I'm not assembling this. Hey, anybody want it?
Send it to Mike. Send it to Mike.
Yeah, send it to Miniature Mike.
Yeah.
You know what?
Oh, wait.
Mike, send me an email. I'll mail this to you. You can do it. You put it together.
That's too big for my stuff.
Yeah, it is too big, but it's still better off in your hands.
Yeah, like here. This is crazy. This is, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get this.
Oh,
This
look
is
at Mike.
the shoulder joint. Like it's just I don't know. I did it.
You know,
just to
it's
see what it
interesting.
would
Like
look like.
you're putting it up to the camera and it's not quite in focus. And
Yeah.
the truth is, like, if I had it in my hand, I still wouldn't be able to focus on it. My eyes are done.
There you go.
I have to get the
Yeah.
reading glasses out.
There
Look
you
at
go.
that
Yeah.
little hand. Like it's crazy. But guys, I'm sorry.
Mike,
I
what
have to
size?
actually
Your
I
miniature?
have to actually run. I gotta
Okay.
go somewhere. But any last question before I go?
No, not for me, but thank you for doing this.
I'll give the
I
chat 1
learned a
second to
ton this morning.
add anything if they want right before I take off. I hate to miss any questions here.
Yeah, I've been watching it. I don't see any specific questions. I think there are a lot of people that are going to go back and watch this video again because the information that you've provided, Dom, is incredible.
Okay. And if you want to do a follow-up where we can do, if people have a bunch of questions, we can do maybe a follow-up video of answering questions if you want. I'd be happy to do
I
that.
would love, no kidding, if you could do a bit of a cleanup demo at some point.
Sure.
If we could get you on to do that.
Yeah, hit me up. We'll schedule something.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you
Okay,
again.
guys, I have to run. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, thank you. Have a good one. Be safe.
Thank you.
Bye.
Later.
Shout out Bobby. I see he shouted us out. He shouted Dom and I out. So shout out Bobby Vance.
God bless him, man.
Yeah, that was amazing.
So yeah, he pretty much, if you watch the video per se, without him just doing a straight tutorial, he gave the keys to the car. Like you would be driving. Okay, that's exactly what you do. It's exactly what I've been doing. I think where he takes it over the top is in his post work. He goes well above and beyond on the post work.
Yeah. Holy cow, man.
So, it'll be good to try to have him back. So, hopefully people watch this and want to tune in for, really like a post-work tutorial. He'll probably take things into Blender.
Yeah, that's what I want to see.
Yeah.
And show you how to really to smooth out and define some of the areas. I do it, but not to the level that he does it. He'll go back. He definitely goes back and almost redraws the whole scan. So it's crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I want to play with his toys. Wow. But like, kind of the point I was getting at is like the level of skill and talent that he possesses to do what he does. Like how much should he be making an hour to do that type of work?
Right.
And it's not minimum wage.
No,
Not
well,
even
and that's
close.
just it. And that's just it. And we're as creators, we're always trying to find a certain pricing that people can see themselves purchasing, but is also kind of fair to us. But it's generally always
It's so
unfair.
lopsided.
Right.
Yeah.
It's generally
I want to buy everything he makes,
Mhm.
and I can't afford it right now.
Right.
Someday I will, and I am going to buy everything that he puts out.
Well, I know he was trying to do a run of a line, and I hope that there's enough people that see the value in it, because he was basically going to scan and do like up to 30 or 40 figures. Okay.
It's such a brutal amount of work.
Right. All right. And yes, there's a comment trying to make these figures from scratch and get that level of detail.
Yeah.
Again, the amount of work that goes into it, it winds up being unfair to the creator when you have to slap a price on it and hope that people buy it. And then again, you're still going to get commenting like, why is it so expensive? Why, I can't afford that. Yeah.
And this is all This is all even before we try to print it and get like the first print fails.
Yeah.
Like 10 hours in, something goes wrong with the print.
Something goes wrong.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I do all my stuff for myself. I don't sell anything. The one thing that I made for somebody else, I put so much time into making sure I got it right. It was a vulture, right? So it was a smaller size vulture. It was for the guy that had actually created. He had done the line drawings that I based it off of. So I was in contact with him. He said, "Hey, I'd love one of those. Give me a price." I gave him a low, a fair but low price. Printed it to the size that he wanted, and I swear I printed the engine pods 20 times because they just kept failing at the scale I was printing them at. I tried all kinds of different orientations. It was a mess, and I was like, "This is why I don't sell my stuff, because I put so much time." At some point, I would have just said, "Okay, that's good enough for me." But for producing it for somebody else, I'm just like, "All right, I got to try this one more time."
So this is a good segue into something that came through for me this week. So I've been wrestling with trying to get my claw, like the Cobra claw, like just.
Oh, yeah.
And it's too big for my Saturn because of the wingspan. And I tried breaking it up a couple different ways and slicing and printing and it just always had a flaw that was too much for me to overlook. And I just wasn't going to be able to get there. So I finally used a printing service. I used a place out of Chicago, and I got an SLS print. And I have it here.
Oh, okay.
And it is flawless. It's absolutely perfect.
What is that? What is
nylon?
That's something laser sintering, I know.
Sinistering, yeah. Selective laser sinistering.
Selective laser sintering, yeah.
Yeah. So it uses a very fine plastic, like nylon powder. Puts it down, lasers it, fuses it together, and then like a squeegee comes across and puts another super fine layer down. And just 3D printing. But what happens is that powder ends up being the supports. So there's no physical supports connected. So you take the print out, and I imagine you wash it off.
You wash it,
and it is strong. It's got a tiny bit of flex, like where it's supposed to be straight. It is perfectly straight, and I think this is the future for me. Like, if I make a piece that I want perfect for myself, I'll pay the money and get this done. Until the day I can afford $100,000 printer.
Yeah.
I think this is what I'm going to be doing. It's got a tiny bit of texture, which really just kind of takes away the shine. Like it's not smooth like glass. It's not glossy. But I don't care. There's no layer lines of any kind, and it's just perfect.
Beautiful. Yeah.
But this was like $90.
Okay.
For this one piece.
For that one piece. Wow. Okay.
But like for myself, as a once in a while thing, to make myself something that's perfect, this is the way to go. Instead of I wasted so much money and time and got myself so stressed out trying to get a perfect print of this thing. Never again.
Oh wow! I see you're always pulling for the next level. I would have never thought of that, but that's awesome.
I had to do something.
That's incredible.
But so I've got that truck I'm trying to do, and I need a better prototype, and so this is the company I'm going to use to get that prototype.
Okay.
Yeah. And I could have paid it took them. It was going to take like 3 weeks to get me the thing, and I didn't want to pay extra for the expedited deal that they had. And they ended up getting it to me in a week anyway.
Okay.
So
Nice.
it turnaround was pretty quick. I'm absolutely 100% satisfied with it. So yeah, that's the future, man.
Don't give me any ideas. That's nice. That's really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
segueing into what do we have for next time? When do we show back up?
All right. So this month is special because Joe Fest is coming up. So we're doing a special podcast. I think it's in 2 weeks. I'm pulling up the thing now because I can never remember.
Then we got a question. Somebody said, "What was the company, if you know, that did the SLS printing?"
I'll pull that up in a second. Yeah. So the pre-Joe Fest, Saturday, June 18th, we're doing that, and we have a Joe Fest themed guest for that one. What is the name of that company? It's like XO something. Xometry. XOMETRY. I did a Google search. So I've really shied away from these companies for a while because you'll go to their website and it'd be like, click here for a free quote. And then it wants you to upload your file. Like you don't talk to a human. It's just like, hey, just send us your file that you spend hours creating. It'll be fine. So I've been like, I'm not doing that. But yeah, so I finally reached the point where I was desperate enough that I just did it. And it worked out. And to the best of my knowledge, no one is selling that thing online right now. So yeah.
Understood. Steve and I have done that as well for a particular part to do our figures with, so we don't need an O-ring, like a rubber band, to do bigger figures. And that was our first concern. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and that you can't talk to a person and be like, hey, I'm gonna need you to sign this NDA. That's I don't like that way of doing business.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of robots when I call your company. I'm not a fan of, hey, just send me whatever the hell it is. Like I don't know you. Like
right.
Yeah, but my guess with something like that is they don't care what's in the file. They are probably taking the file and running it through an algorithm that determines what's the volume, what's the maximum XYZ on it, and then that spits the quote out. So no human probably ever sees that file.
A human's operating the machine.
Right.
They will see it when it gets made, but as far as the file itself for the quoting purposes, I mean, if you decide to go with them and have them build it, obviously they'll see the part anyway. But from a quoting point of view, to just send it out, I doubt somebody is sitting there and saying, "Oh, I know what this is. This is a claw from an 82 Joe. This is a 82 Joe claw. I'm going to take this file and I'm going to start selling it."
Right.
No, they probably have no idea what it is or even see it other than a series of ones and zeros.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be real time consuming, right?
Yeah.
It's like the I'm not going to get into the conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we are a bit over time, but I do want to touch on a couple of things. I pulled this picture up earlier when we were kind of troubleshooting the connections, and I think I need one of these in my life.
Man, yeah. I haven't printed it yet, but it's because, dude, I have run out of space. I'm looking at it going, holy crap. The length of it is about half of the flag.
Well, you're going to have to print a classified flag for it to go onto.
There you go. Problem solved. Problem staying solved.
Stop it.
So I've got a place for all my stuff now. I don't have any shelves or anything up yet, but I know where all my oversized stuff is going to go now.
Can I put some of mine over there?
Sure. Head on over.
All right.
Yeah,
all right.
You could sublease it as a museum.
Yeah, that would be dope.
I got to start making some money on this place somehow, because right now it's just an expense. What else we got? Do you guys have anything you wanted to share this week?
Oh boy.
New projects, anything?
Yeah, I gave the quick preview of it, but I've gone down a rabbit hole. Let's see if I can get it on camera and have it focus. But you know, with my miniatures, I have a bunch of vehicles, but nobody to go with it.
Oh, it's Destro.
Yep. So that's a 20 millimeter tall Destro.
You printed that?
Yep.
Where are these files coming from?
So that's a CG. It's Crimson Guardsman.
Yep.
So I have found somebody in the group mentioned them, but there's a Patreon called Random Miniatures. It's a guy out of Norway, and he started with like your normal Dungeons and Dragons and other fantasy type miniatures, you know, 28 millimeter, 35 millimeter stuff. But he expanded into doing all kinds of 80s pop culture, 80s and 90s pop culture. So he's got a whole series called Joe Bros. He's got about 100 different characters that he's done.
Wow.
He's got Thundercats. He's got Silverhawks. He's got Brave Star. A lot of really starting to get into some really niche stuff. But his Patreon is $6.50 a month, US, and you have access to all files.
650?
No, $6.50, and I missed his early bird special, which would have been $3 a month. So
still not bad.
Oh no. So I'm going to be supporting him for quite some time.
So I couldn't quite see. Sorry to interrupt you.
Sure.
He's making those. Those don't look like a Hero Forge thing that he.
No. You can tell from the details. And here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not gonna want to focus on it.
Yeah.
But
definitely post some pictures. When you
I'll start posting pictures once I get them. I just started doing this about 2 days ago, so
Okay.
these are my trial runs just to see how well it will work. But once I get pictures that I like, I'm gonna start.
Almost had it for a second there.
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go.
There we go.
So this is definitely a Crimson Guardsman holding the gun with the bayonet.
Yeah.
Got the unique backpack.
Interesting.
And he's got a lot of really good detail, a lot of really good stuff. And I actually reached out to him when I first joined the Patreon just with a general question. And he's going to follow a suggestion from me and another guy and make the kids from the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon in miniature form. So
yeah, or from the what is it, a Brazilian car commercial?
And the Brazilian car commercial. Yep, exactly.
I want that to be a live action show with those actors.
Yes,
so bad.
That car commercial was incredible. That I for whatever reason I was never into Dungeons and Dragons, but I love that show. I love that cartoon.
Yeah.
Do you ever see the statue set? A couple years ago, they did a special set of all the kids, and you buy each character individual, but the bases all interconnect, and they're like 12-inch tall sculpted figures, and they're gorgeous. But they were like $100 a piece new. By the time the whole set was ready, forget it. But anyway, the Patreon is Random Miniatures. I actually fast tracked the guy into the G.I. Joe group.
Cool.
You'll see a name. He joined yesterday. It's a Norwegian spelling. Basically, it looks like it's an O with a cross over it is the spelling of his name. I won't even try to pronounce it in my American English.
It'll look like a piece of furniture from IKEA.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
All right. What you got, Juan?
Oh boy. So I've
been
been tinkering around with my Navy series and that I wanted to do some dress whites. I call these the summer dress whites because it's a short sleeve shirt.
That's what they're called.
Okay, there you go. So just adding on to some staffing for the flag, making sure that Killhawk has some staff that he can kind of holler at when things aren't going right. I'm eventually going to do like an admiral ledger. Like I think that's where I'm going to stop. But this is the summer dress whites, and then I'll also be able to obviously do the tans or the khaki colors. Yeah. Just something I've been kind of working on. I got somewhat encompassed into to filling out my flag with some Navy staff. So that's where I'm at with that. I hope you guys can kind of see it. I don't think I can get any closer, but I will show some pictures later. Some people have already seen it. They come equipped. All of them so far are 3 stripes on the shoulder. And so, just hoping to add some stuff to the Joe roster for people looking to throw some guys on the flag.
Awesome.
Yeah, has the guy that's doing the correct scaled flag reached out to you?
No.
Have you seen that thing?
Yeah, the one that he built in his basement. Yes.
Yes. Holy cow! Have you seen that, Mark?
Say again?
Have you seen that, Mark? The correct.
I've seen it, and people always compare it to Jethro Gibbs from NCIS because he was building a boat in his basement. But yeah, it's large. I question whether it's accurately scaled or not.
Yeah.
I think it's still probably small.
You think it's small still?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it? I remember dimensions being something like 20 feet.
Well, so you know what? There's like a World War II carrier isn't the same thing as a CVN.
Right.
And so like if you've got, this was early 80s. I mean, I don't remember them saying like, was the flag nuclear powered? There was an episode where they used sails
at one point, but
yeah, but there was when it sank and they had it had crashed into the Cobra helicarrier and they sank, did they use the power from the flag to lift it? I don't recall. Anyway, there's a difference between the size of a CV and a CVN. And it's pretty serious. So, but like the new carriers, man, they're so damn big.
Yeah, they're
so big.
They are ridiculous. So, because it takes the amount of time that it takes to really kind of flush out the figures, I'm kind of squeaking along, but I definitely love to show the progress. I'm still not really even happy with these, and I think they look good, but I'm still not 100% happy. So
yeah.
Sheesh.
Wow. Was the Night Force Tomahawk that was a real product?
No.
Or is that's a custom thing?
Custom, yeah.
Okay.
I was wondering the same thing. I was like, I don't remember Night Force Tomahawk. There was a real Tiger Force Tomahawk that came along as a convention special.
Yeah, the convention set, yeah. No, the Night Force Tomahawk, just because of show and tell, a buddy of mine who does, he's just a skilled automotive painter. He does these. His name is Frankenstein over in like the South Carolina area.
All right.
And he does incredible painting. So I pick up something from him every chance I get.
Okay. So I don't have anything else really to show. I did want to kind of point this out though. So I did a design for the ferret, and my brother had one as a kid, and I had the Crimson Guard. So
yeah.
So that this is the original one, and it looks right. That's how I remember it.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize how huge it is. So look at the back end is almost up to their shoulders.
Right. Sheesh.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's big.
You always
So
think of it as a small vehicle, but yeah,
you
it was
think of it as a small vehicle,
pretty
and it's
beefy.
almost as big as the damn vamp.
Yep.
It's a little smaller than the vamp. It's huge. So the guy who's printing them is printing them, and he's going to sell them. And I think people are going to be really surprised when they get it, and it is large. But it's a real interesting thing when you start designing based on these old vehicles. You get into all these little nooks and crannies, and you don't realize how much you overlooked as a youth. It's interesting.
Yeah.
And if you guys have nothing else, I'm gonna call it. We're at an hour 30,
Okay. Yep.
so we're good.
Well, great show. We hope to see you guys again on the
2
18th.
weeks.
2 weeks. And then at Joe Fest, I guess,
And then
to
it's
start
Joe Fest.
within the group talking about Joe Fest plans. Who's going? Who wants to meet up? That kind of stuff.
Yep.
Sweet.
So yeah, and we'll next podcast 2 weeks we'll get deep into all that. So thank you guys for coming out and checking it out. Learned a lot today, and this will be up on YouTube shortly. Have a good one.
All right.
Yo, Joe.
Bye.